This just might be the closest thing you can get to wall hacks in Airsoft, the Infitac ATP-13. And you see, I come from a world where in Airsoft, if you had a red dot sight back then, you were above all others, because this was just cool in itself. But Infitac, I believe, is the first company to take the leap of faith and design a thermal optic the size of a red dot sight that is specifically designed for Airsoft use. Which is incredible because we're finally getting to a point in Airsoft where things are getting even closer to real steel than we can ever imagine. Yeah, that's right. You go on a field nowadays and you see night vision scopes, thermals, you name it, people have it. And this one might not cost you an arm and a leg. Anyways, enough yapping. I think it's time for an unbiased review of this tiny little thermal. Inside the package, you'll find a digital thermal optic, an RMR mounting plate, 2 rechargeable 600 milliamp CR2 batteries, the charger and the USB charging cord, the mounting hardware, and a 3-month warranty code. Now, from my understanding, this is not the only RMR-sized thermal that Infitac makes. This specifically is modeled off of one of their real steel variants that they decided to make a little bit more affordable by changing out some of the internals and externals for Airsoft use. And where it's marketed as a RMR or red dot-sized thermal, you could see next to a standard red dot, it's still comparable in size, quite a bit larger, but only weighs around 500 grams. The objective lens is a beautiful looking fisheye at the front that's seated in properly, but has no protection, which worries me in case it gets hit by a BB. And same goes for the screen at the back. The enemies are less likely to hit this, but if it does make contact with a BB, I don't know how well that's going to fare. After painfully scoring the surface, I can confidently tell you that this is made of plastic, so the external construction can be better. I wish this was aluminum. The left side of the scope is where all of your fun stuff happens. The left arrow is also the power button, and the right arrow also functions as the menu button. And over here, you have the battery compartment that can fold out and open on the field if needed without any tools. Inside the battery housing, you can see the compartment. It also shows you what side the battery needs to be facing because both sides actually have springs. Load it like a birdshot shell and close that guy shut. Plus, there's a rubber O-ring which should give it some sort of water resistance. Now on the opposing side, there's a small flap that you can pop open for a Type-C charger, and this will help you run an external battery pack if you choose to on the field. However, in proper conditions, this should function for 5 hours on a single battery, and those are easy to replace, plus they give you 2. Now, where the RMR plate was easy to install via 2 screws that already came pre-installed with Loctite Blue onto the plate of my U-Shot TP-22, there's one rifle that I have with this where I would have been thrilled to mount it on a Picatinny rail or even a 45-degree mounted position. Their Picatinny mounts cost an outrageous amount of BBs. Like I said, I think that mount should be standard included inside of the box just because that is the single most popular way to mount any optic at all. But I guess this will have to do for now. To mount the device onto the plate, you'll need the 4 screws and the tool that come with it, which again, like I said, are beautifully Loctited preemptively. Drop the sight on in place, and you'll notice it sits really snug with 4 screw ports on either side to help stabilize it. I also think it's time to step away from countersunk Allen bolts and start moving to these T5 or star bits because they strip less frequently and they're so much better looking. And when mounted onto the RMR plate, you can see it looks huge and clunky, but doesn't feel that way. It actually weights quite nicely over the top of the replica. Now, credit where credit's due, this design is pretty cool. Thermal optics usually aren't used for the sole way of targeting enemies. You're going to wind up looking through these to spot people in distance, spot people in crowded areas, spot people in dark areas, and you use a different optic to see people regularly. With this, in this case, being it's on the RMR plate, is the only option you have because it actually blocks the rear and the front irons. But they were kind enough to include some false irons that are dimly cut into the top of the ATP-13, which you don't have a front iron sight, but this should be enough for you to target an enemy, at least at a close range. To first power on the thermal, we're going to press and hold the top button. And she should come on with the Infitac logo on the screen. I do want to say, looking at the screen the first time, things are extremely clear. And you'll notice at the top there's a bar that shows a 0.5x zoom, which can also be adjusted by a 2-finger spread for a 1x zoom, and then a 2-finger pinch for a 5x zoom. And then on the top right, you also have your battery life, so you can see if you have to plug it in or swap a battery. What's even cooler about this optic is there is personalization options. Simply swiping the optic to the right, you'll see you have a white dot, a red dot, a green dot, and a black dot. And then if you want to switch it off and change off the reticle, you can actually switch it from what we're on right now, which is the 6 MOA dot and the 130 MOA circle, to the 6 MOA dot and the 6 MOA dot and 65 MOA circle. But the standard Snake Vision color palette isn't the one that you like. You can switch between different ones like white hot, red hot, just by simply pulling down on the screen, which is even cooler. Now, I regret to inform you I am a one-man army here, so I'm trying to do this all with this crazy mount system that I have going on, but I won't be able to see if it can pick up my heat signature very well until after I watch this back, so you'll have to let me know how it looks. And then if we go ahead and switch it off to the next variant, you should be able to see again it picking up my heat signature no problem. I'm not behind any bushes or anything like that. We'll test that in just a second. Oh man, I hope this is really cool to watch on camera. If anyone saw me in my backyard right now, they think I'm a goofball. Switch it off to the next mode, and we'll do a little bit of like a run. Really excited to check this out on my phone. Can't wait to watch this back. And then the final color palette. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Now, besides its shake awake and auto off features, it also comes built in with a computer system that you can edit and adjust the screen to. Simply by pressing and holding the lower menu button, pulls up a menu that allows you to adjust brightness, contrast, calibrate, shake awake, power off settings, factory reset, extra information about the unit, zeroing, and back to brightness, which brings me to the next thing, zeroing. Let's press it. Now, when it comes to zeroing, it's quite simple. Let's just first check to see if we can actually see a BB fire on a thermal optic. And we're going to be firing at that purple target down that way. You can. Let's fire off in the distance. Hope that's coming up on camera. Now, to zero it in, unlike a standard optic where you can see where the BB flies, lands, and then adjust the flight path of the BB to the center of the optic, digital optics are totally different. This is actually how you adjust it on any digital thermal, night vision, you name it. We actually have to shoot, and then wherever it lands, we adjust the reticle on a frozen screen to the landing point of the BB. So for example, I'm just going to point this downrange at a target, and with the reticle on the target and the BB flying low, what we're going to do now is adjust our X and Y axis to a lower position. Simply put, we'll start with the Y axis here, and we're going to move the reticle down, so negative space, and then we'll try and fire again. See what I mean? That was a little left, so I'm going to move the X axis here, and that should move us to the right. Bingo. Oh, I missed that one. I missed that one too. There we go. See what I mean? It's a little bit different, but it's totally possible. Now, why don't we challenge it on some obstacles? I want to see if it can't pick me up as I start to go behind some cover, like a bush, for example. I'll go behind this pine tree, and we'll see if you can't see me before I notice you see me. Should be picking up my heat signature now. The question is how much? And then I start walking out of the bush, and chances are you knew I was there, and I thought I was hidden. Another fun one is footprint. You'll be able to hear my cat meowing. You can see there are no footprints here. I'm going to take a walk with my socks that were just outside sweating, and we'll take a walk and see if we can't look back and see footprints. Holy smokes. You can, in fact, see footprints. That's wild. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see any movement, but I have a closed door and I'm walking around behind it. If there's a small gap in the door, theoretically you should be able to see my feet or the heat signature coming from under the door, which would mean that you'll notice people are there even before they walk out the door. Now, something that is going to take getting used to as opposed to using a standard red dot is where the reticle isn't always visible to the naked eye because you have to center yourself down the red dot in order to see it. When you have something like a digital, the red dot or the dot is always visible even at an angle, which means that theoretically that gives you around the corner peeking capabilities, which, you know, I wouldn't do. Make sure you see what you're shooting at before you pew at it. But why don't we see if I can't get used to it, and we'll run this guy on a few little like headshot style drills. All right, here we go. Aim for headshots only in 3, 2, 1. It's not too bad. Definitely takes a little getting used to. But the latency, that's really not there. Almost unnoticeable. There we go, and we lock back. Now for a thermal, it weighs next to nothing. However, for a red dot, it's kind of heavy. And where I'm sure that I have an easy time because what I'm using right now is the U-Shot TP-22, which has a totally stabilized RMR plate with the barrel, which helps decrease recoil and increase stability. If you were to throw this on something like a Glock, where the recoil and the red dot move at the same time, or the slide and the red dot move at the same time, it might be a heavy little sucker. Again, that's a heavy red dot. It's a very light thermal, heavy red dot. We can just go ahead and hold the power button of the ATP-13. It'll count down from 3, 2, 1, and 0, and shuts off. And I think it's about time that we wrap it up. First, I want to say to Infitac, I really appreciate you sending this on out, and the fact that they're making thermals for Airsoft specifically means more people will have access to cooler products, and Airsoft is just moving in such a cool direction. I want to praise this thing where praise is due. Its thermal works extremely well. It feels comfortable. It's not the largest thing in the world. Such a small thermal like this allows you to run it as a side piece, like on a side mount, a 45-degree mount, and have no problems. Whereas with some thermals, they're so large, you almost have to only use a red dot. But now you can run things like LPVOs next to this if you want to hike up the hefty BB tag for the slew of different mounting brackets that they have, which I do think should be cheaper and at least include the rail attachment one in the box. A couple other things that I think are necessary is they should include, especially being this is designed for Airsoft, some sort of screen protector. You can't use glass or plastic. It would have to be a honeycomb, and I think that should come straight out of the box as well to protect something like this, especially at how pricey this is, almost running more in most cases than a really good primary GBBR. You're going to want to make sure that's protected. Other than that, I think Infitac hit all the boxes on this one. Having the touchscreen available is huge, and they have so many different personalization options on here that just make this thing unique, and it's like an all-in-one. The ability to charge it, the ability to replace batteries, the recharger. They did a great job, and Airsofters, let me know if you think this is a thing of the future, and if you like the direction that Airsoft is going. Until next time, I'll catch you on the next adventure. Infitac, thank you so much for sending it out. I love the fact that we're partnered together now, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.